I remember I actually heard about Facebook in when I was in my first year of high school, and I didn't know what it was. So immediately close, I went home and looked for a phone and tried to install and get into Facebook. So yeah, so with this friend called Alex, we would go get newspaper extracts to read about tech. So I think that's where the first interest came in.
So even back in the day,
Yeah.
you still have to like get a newspaper just to even see what was happening.
Since the course did not really focus on software engineering as much, but then for myself and my two friends who had learned software engineering, we would teach our classmates software engineering. So we would learn, and then on our free time create a class and maybe get some small money from them, and then teach them software engineering. So with that in mind, when I applied for this job, they also saw that I had that background. I had those certifications from the hackathons, so they were able to give me the job. I worked for a company in Kiambu, which was dealing with farmers. So we were building software for farmers, for daily farmers.
And maybe for our listeners, like what type of things would you build for a farmer? You don't usually think of technology and farmers. Yeah, that's definitely one. I used to run children's homes, and that's where the children get the HIV medication from USAID sponsored programs. So the medicine's quite expensive, so I'm sure, I don't know how.
Hopefully our government will be able to fill that gap.
To find a way to fill the gap.
It's quite a big gap.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nairobi Gold Rush podcast. I'm your host, Scott, CTO of Safeboda, and we're bringing you the best guests who work in the tech industry of Nairobi. We've got a very special guest with us today. We have Eric Kogi. He is a senior engineering manager with Safeboda, leads a lot of the software development team there at Safeboda. Worked with Eric for quite a while, and he's going to tell us a lot about his journey. Before we get started, be sure you like and subscribe. We really need your help to support this podcast and really bring these stories of great tech resilience to our audience. So be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll get started here with Eric. So Eric, maybe just to start out, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? Where did you grow up? Maybe just talk about who is Eric and where did you kind of come from?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott, first of all, for having me here. Really, it's a pleasure being here. So, guys, as we had, my name is Eric. Born and raised in a place called Ithanga. Is deep in Murang'a County, with a new dispensation of counties. Born in in the 90s. I don't have to put my age here for. So I was raised in a place called Litanga. Since my childhood, we never really moved. So I've only moved when I came to Nairobi for professional for employment and professional studies as well. Yeah, so that is where I come from. Now, who I am, so as Scott has mentioned, I'm an engineering manager. First of all, a software engineer. Secondly, an engineering manager at Safeboda, where I work with a team of really talented engineers to build transport solutions for East Africa. Yeah, so that's my work background.
Yeah, and so when you were growing up, like, what was the home family life like? Were you grew up in kind of like more of a rural setting? Were you more in the city? Like, what was the setup that you had?
Yeah, so Itanga is quite rural. So I'll say it's purely a rural setting. However, it was a little bit opening up. So I was born. We are two children in our family. So I'm the firstborn. So in terms of growing up, I'll say it was more of rural, and it was a very quite stable family with my mom and dad working in the civil service. So that was quite a good upbringing, quite stable home. Yeah, so that's my.
And when you say your family worked in the civil service, what does that mean to?
Yeah.
What type of things would you do in the civil service?
Yeah, so my dad is a teacher, my mom is a teacher, so both of them are teachers. Well, my dad right now is what we used to call headmaster back then. I don't know if he's still headmaster. Yeah, so it's and then my mom is also a teacher in the primary schools around my hometown.
Yeah. So in order to become an engineering manager and to go into tech and software development, it takes a lot of knowledge, I'm assuming. So did your parents come kind of from an early age, teach you at home and tell you like you need to get out there and be learning all these things, or was it something that you kind of had a passion for on your own?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say necessarily teach me and guide me to this field, to the engineering field. However, there is a lot of background that I took from my early childhood. So first of all, a boy being born and raised by teachers really gives you quite a boost because first of all, there's a lot of discipline. So you can imagine there's the same discipline that teachers enforce in schools is what you're required to have at home. So my early childhood was quite with a lot of discipline being enforced, right? So then there was schooling. So I was fortunate enough to school in a school that was right opposite our home. So I didn't have to travel a lot. So my primary school schooling was right across the home. Again, number three, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, my mother taught in the same school that I went to.
Oh,
So
so
that
you
is
couldn't get in as much trouble. You couldn't be sneaking out of class or anything.
yeah. I mean, in the early years, that's a nice thing because you get to sneak into her class probably if she has carried porridge and take a few snips.
Yeah.
But then later on, you find it becomes a little bit now. Everything you do is reported home before you even get home to change the story. So yeah, so that was the early childhood time. Then I went on to high school at a school called Gaishanjiro. It's also in Moranga County. So my whole life up to until this point has been in rural, right, in Moranga
Yeah.
and
And
everything.
did you travel any as a kid, or were you just mainly there at your home place and you didn't see much of Kenya or?
We did travel. So there were as a family we did a couple of travels. We visited Mombasa. We would visit Mombasa. I think a few times. I also had cousins and aunts and uncles in town in Nairobi, and so every time we close school, I would be very, very, very excited to come to Nairobi and wonder how people are not getting lost with all these buildings that all look the same. So that was quite interesting so that was the experience.
Yeah.
That was what was opening up my mind into looking at Nairobi.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know myself, I come from a similar situation of more of a rural, smaller town setting. And same. I just grew up like in the same place. Didn't travel that much. I would go to my dad and complain and say, "All my friends are traveling over the world," and he said, "Oh, you want to travel? We'll get in the car and we'll just start driving for 500 kilometers around and to see nothing really, just to say that we've traveled." So yeah, it's kind of interesting when you come from that smaller town background and kind of more rural setting. So did you always from a young age know you wanted to be like an engineer, or how did you first kind of pique the interest in like working with computers and things like that?
Not really. I never had the whole picture figured out of what I wanted to really do. I knew I wanted to be in the physical sciences or in the sciences, but I didn't know what exactly it was that I wanted to do. Maybe not until campus or late high school. So fortunately, my life has always been on top of people or being helped by other people in terms of guidance. So on high school, I met a friend called Alex, and we were very close. We were very good friends, and we would take extracts from newspapers and look at what is going on in the world. And you were very interested in tech news, so we would read about that time. Facebook is a new thing. I remember I actually heard about Facebook in when I was in my first year of high school, and I didn't know what it was. So immediately close, I went home and looked for a phone and tried to install and get into Facebook. So yeah, so with this friend called Alex, we would go get newspaper extracts to read about tech. So I think that's where the first interest came in.
So even back in the day, you still have to like get a newspaper just to even see what was happening.
Well, yeah, so I'm in school, so we don't have access to laptops. So
yeah, no computer,
no computers. We didn't have a computer class. So I had not had a computer with me really up to until this point. so using
And
those newspaper
and I
extracts
assume
to
at the
do.
time in the area you were, the internet access wasn't so good, maybe.
Yeah, I remember there was one cyber cafe, but mostly the role of those cyber cafes was for movies and
Yeah.
yeah, where you go take a disc or something like that. Not necessarily to go there and browse, or maybe just for photocopying
Yeah.
documents and stuff like that.
Well, you definitely wouldn't want to be doing any kind of programming or anything there. Those guys would be hacking on you, doing a banking application,
Yeah,
and those guys would be stealing
yeah.
your information. So, oh, okay. So that's pretty interesting. So even just through the newspaper or articles, you were able to learn about tech to pique your interest, even without a computer or anything. So was it first maybe when you went to the university campus when you started getting more access to these things, or did it even take longer after that?
Yeah, so back at home, also when we would close, there were some friends of mine who had already gone to campus,
Mm-hmm.
and since they were already in campus, they would probably at maybe in the mid years of campus, they would get a machine, a laptop, or something like that, and I would see them using those laptops. Mostly to just also see movies and do like something like that. So I was interested in these gadgets that they're using. So when I went to campus, that was really the first things that I really wanted to have. So I wanted to have a laptop. I remember really begging my dad and mom to buy me a laptop. Fortunately or unfortunately, I went to a campus called Moi University.
Yeah.
It's way down in Eldoret.
Oh, yes, very far away.
Yeah, quite far away. So that was actually one of the first time I'm super far away from home. It was interesting to be that far away. So there is where now the full realization that I want to go into software came in, because I was able to play around with computers, met some friends who were also interested in learning, and yeah, from there on it has been going. Yeah,
Yeah. So since the campus, you were able to then kind of get your love for computers.
yeah,
And I know for myself, uh, and I'm a little bit older. In the '80s we had a computer. My dad was able to get a computer somehow, and it had 40 meg of memory. I remember. No, the hard drive was 40 meg, not even memory. The it was like 40 meg of memory hard drive. And I don't even remember the memory. It was like a 140K or something kilobytes or something. I mean, it was something like ridiculously slow. And we didn't have the internet back then. So what you would do is you would use the modem, and it would make all those noises and call.
yeah.
And people would host different. They would call them BBSs. I don't know what that stands for. I don't really remember. But you would actually call in, and you could kind of chat with your friends in the town, because everybody
Oh,
within the town would be
hard,
calling
yeah.
into that place. So you could kind of, it was almost like a little chat type of thing. Or it was mainly you could see any articles maybe somebody had put up there. It was like kind of this green screen type of situation.
So an early version of social media.
Yeah, it was like right before because the internet browser, I don't remember what year it came out, maybe 94,
Yeah.
93, 94, somewhere. I don't remember the exact year, but, and when the browser came out, it was like, whoa, this is crazy. But that's how I, kind of got introduced a little bit, but, the computers back then were so basic. And I remember, the first computer I would go in, and you would read these documents, these books like DOS.
Yeah.
It'd be like MS DOS, and it'd be like 600 pages of MS DOS, all the commands and everything, and you had no videos or tutorials. And so I just start typing all this stuff, but I would type like delete or format, like what's this format thing. So I formatted the whole
Oh.
thing by accident, and then of course I was like really young, I didn't know how to fix it. So I mean, it's kind of interesting how you come into these situations. So did you study computer science at campus, or what was your
Yeah.
area of study?
So interestingly, I had really applied I really wanted to get into either IT, computer science, BBIT, all those. I didn't know the definition of each at the
Yeah.
point where I was applying, but I knew I wanted to go into something to do with technology. Unfortunately, I got my letter from my university that read I'm invited for a course in information science.
Uh-huh.
So at first it was like, what is this thing called information science?
Yeah, information science.
So I looked it up. I realized it didn't really. It was really what I wanted.
Yeah.
Because it had some bits of computer science in it. So it had some operating systems courses, some low level or very high level system design, some programming in it, but it was more oriented to library and information packaging.
Oh, like how
So,
to run
yeah,
a library or
yeah.
something?
So in fact, the whole name of the course was Library and Information Science.
Oh, yeah.
I really tried so much not to mention the library part whenever I was talking to people.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to mention the information science, but the actual certification was information science in information science.
Uh-huh.
However, now that's why I'm saying friends really made a very big impact in me, because I remember in my first year I met two of my best friends in campus who had also got into this course without really wanting to go into this course, but this is what they had been invited to do, and we decided to teach ourselves computer science. We decided to use the basics that we've been taught in the course, and then since we also know computer science students, merge with them and make sure that we also teach ourselves.
So how does one teach themselves computer science? It's like if I said I'm going to go to SpaceX and teach myself rocket science or something.
Yeah, but yeah, the good thing is that there were the course was laying the basics, so at least we got something to do with operating systems, for instance.
Mhm.
So like we could tell we had the basics of operating systems. We had the basics of C++, C++
Mhm.
in the same information science course. But now they will never go into depth as much.
Yeah.
So what we will do now is from there now on we go and see what the computer science students have been taught, right, and learn now from there. Use the internet, of course. That time now the internet is something that is there, and I'm widely using it. So that's how we would teach ourselves, and mostly it also came from actually doing stuff.
Mhm.
So I was really interested in building stuff. So I remember even from my first year, I started building small applications.
Yeah.
So that I'm using something called JavaFX, which would mean you build up an application for the desktop.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
like a library management system, since I'm learning library management.
So you could build something to do with the library. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's how we would learn.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. And what I find interesting is when it comes to computer science, a lot of guys I meet are in your similar situation. You don't necessarily study computer science, or even myself, I studied electrical engineering, which has a little bit of computer science to it, but it's, electrical engineering is more about working with circuit boards or building cell phone chips and things like that. But it's not
the basic.
You're not learning programming structures and all those type of things.
Sure.
So I think that's a pretty common. I wonder why that is. I guess now with the resources available today, it's a little bit easier for people to get into that.
Sure. I think at this point it's quite easy, especially with all the boot camps and the resources available out there. I mean, even with the new AI stuff, it's quite very easy to learn, to teach yourself to learn these things. Yeah.
And it seems like a pretty good program for Kenya, particularly because there's not as many jobs. If you say you want to go into aerospace engineering or something, right? There's, you don't have Boeing or these big airplane companies around. So computer science could be a pretty good career. Well, maybe. So after you started campus, did you start working like right away after campus?
My campus ride was a little bit different from the normal. So as I said, so I've now gotten into this course called information science. It's not my first choice, but I like it anyway. But then I decided I needed to do something extra to make sure that I get to where I want. So what I would do is I would look for any hackathon or any event that I see online and apply. So that means I would apply to hackathons in Nairobi, and at that time I'm in Eldoret. Apply to hackathons in Nairobi.
So would you have to travel back and
forth? So during a semester, I would probably do like 3 weekends of campus, traveling to Nairobi to do a hackathon back and stuff like that. So that really also opened up my mind, because now I go to meet people doing their startups.
When you were doing the hackathons, did you start to get a reputation? They'd see you coming and they would start running away, or not so much?
Well, I don't think aside so much as a reputation, but I actually did become myself. So the team I was in one of the hackathons, hosted by Angel Hack and funded by Microservices and Facebook, we actually became second runners up.
Oh, nice!
So that was quite a good thing to put in my CV and say I've been to this hackathon, And actually, I think we won some credits on AWS, the cloud hosting solutions
Wow.
that I used for quite a while before having to pay for.
Yeah, that's a really great way to get guys engaged when you don't have like the opportunity from the campus to do these deeper courses. I mean, it's a great experience to and how did you meet like a lot of the other guys? Are you just friends that you knew that would join your team, or you?
Yeah, so for the hackathons, it would be like a 4-day or 3-day event whereby you get there without knowing anybody really, and then the sponsors have the ideas that you're going to be built, or basically maybe let's say the APIs that you're going to use, right? And then they ask you to form groups, right? So that time you get to socialize. So again, here I'm an introverted person, but then I'm being told to form a team, so it was quite challenging. But then you get to form a team and you get to build something and present at the last day of the hackathon.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you? I guess from your university was kind of far outside of Nairobi, so as you're starting to think about your career and everything. I mean, were companies coming and recruiting there, or it was just once you're finished, it's like okay, go into the world?
Yeah. Fortunately, well, since I had this intention to like make sure that I make luck follow me,
Yeah.
if I could call it that way. I made it an intentional thing so that I would put myself out there more. So
Yeah.
what I did is, we in more university we had very long breaks. So probably people joined. I think we joined in 2014 September, and a course that should take 4 years. People were graduating in 2020, 2019,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So what that meant is that I had a lot of time in between to do my own stuff. So what I did is, during one of those semester breaks, I would go now improve on my application building skills, sell to schools at home, their school management systems, sell to hardware management system.
Yeah.
And just through building those skills, I was able to find a job in Nairobi, close to the end of my campus time. So I moved campuses, and now was working while
Kind of stationed in Nairobi.
Yes,
Then you're
yes.
able to get a place in Nairobi.
Yeah. So that's the first time I actually lived in Nairobi. And
How was it? Did you find it to be quite a different experience living in Nairobi now, based on where you grew up? Like what kind of challenging things did you find?
yeah, it was quite challenging. First of all, adapting to this new environment whereby it's a bit chaotic, I would say. I mean, having to find means very early in the morning, knowing when you need to actually get on the bus so that you get to work at the correct time.
Yeah.
Knowing when to leave and all that. But I think since I had been coming to Nairobi for all these events and also visiting my cousins and the rest, it was a little bit easier to change. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. So you mentioned you got a job like pretty early on then. Well, what were you doing when what was your first job like?
I didn't fall very far away from my parents. I became a tutor.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I was teaching software engineering. So I got a job at a software engineering institute. So how I got that job is because while in campus, since the course did not really focus on software engineering as much, but then for myself and my two friends who had learned software engineering, we would teach our course mates software engineering. So we would learn and then on our free time create a class and maybe get some small money from them, and then teach them software engineering. So with that in mind, when I applied for this job, they also saw that I had that background. I had those certifications from the hackathons, so they were able to give me the job. Yeah.
And what's interesting is, in order to teach something, I feel like you really have to be an expert in order to teach something.
Yeah.
Because that's how you usually tell if somebody knows something. You say, "Explain to me how this works." And if they know how it really works, then they can explain it to you. But there's certain topics like I don't know that well, so you say explain it. No, well, I sort of understand it, but not really. So I think that's a true testament of like, okay, you were building this expertise level, so now you're going out and kind of mentoring and sharing with others like how it actually works. So so I guess you were doing that for a while, and then
so I was doing that from 2017. Tutoring students, and the people I'm teaching here, some of them are older than me because they're people either in the industry and they want to learn software engineering at their free time. And also, we also had now high school students who have just finished high school and they want to do a course before they get into campus. So, however, now after a few months of teaching, the institute also was doing consultancy work. So they would get projects from individuals, from businesses to build them software.
Sure.
So again, now I started doubling up, teaching maybe in the morning, and then in the afternoon, I'm working on building
Working
software.
on some consultancy type projects.
So it was interesting. I mean, that's my first money. So really, really great experience earning your first salaries. It really seemed a lot. I think I remember once traveling to Mombasa with once the SGR have just come around. So it was really an exciting time period for me.
Yeah, it's a good time. You're going out into the world. Starting to see money coming in now a little bit for these projects and kind of seeing the worth that you have for that. So, and so when would you say you really kind of got into a job where you started seeing some real technical challenges and like, now you're like at a really kind of high pressure type of situation?
Yeah. So within the first few months of working at that institute, we started getting very, very high pressure software requirements to build for customers. And I actually transitioned now from mostly teaching to doing purely software engineering. Actually leading the team there that was doing software engineering. So we had very technical problems, and at this point I was mostly focused on mobile applications. So we had applications that really required a lot of thinking, and you're building for people who probably are not online all the time. So you have the challenges there become much because you have to think about caching on the phone and stuff like that. So that was the first time I got to do really challenging work. Before then it was just desktop applications, and for desktop applications, especially for like hardware and school management, you have a lot of resources to play around with. But here you're working on a mobile phone, and those days the mobile phones are a little bit smaller in terms of RAM and memory.
Back then, what did you say? That's 2017, 2018, somewhere around there.
It's there. We have good phones, but not to everyone.
Exactly. They're much smaller specifications and really hard to work with, I guess, compared to the desktop. Okay. And so that sounds good. So I guess at some point you were doing all this, and then I guess you had a history where you went to work for a bank at some point.
So from there, from that institute, I worked there for like two and a half years. And then before the bank, I worked for two other companies. So I worked for a company in Kiambu, which was dealing with farmers. So we were building software for farmers, for daily farmers.
And maybe for our listeners, like what type of things would you build for a farmer? You don't usually think of technology and farmers.
Exactly. So you realize we have these dairy farmers who have cows and they sell milk at the end of the day or in the morning. Now, the problem is it's very difficult for them to even manage or estimate how much they are gaining, or are they losing, are they going at a loss. It's also very difficult for them to justify, to go to a bank and look for a loan or something like that, because they don't have records, right? So what you are trying to do is digitize the whole experience for farmers, for dairy farmers. What that involved is building very simple USSD and application apps that would help farmers input records. So, for instance, I've milked 50 liters of milk. I input that. I input how much of feeds I'm giving the cows, and then I also get buyers on the same platform. So that would help. At the end of the day, I can look at the report and see this is how much I'm making. Am I making a loss? Where do I need to cut?
So it's kind of like financing or like accounting for farmers. Oh, nice. Okay.
It's quite interesting because it involved really going into actual farms, talking to the farmers. I mean, again, it reminded me of back home. So again, at home we used to have cows. I used to do the milk and everything. So now it has come.
You felt in the comfort level.
I was at home.
Yeah, exactly. And I've come from a rural area as well, and worked around seeing the farming stuff quite a bit hands on, and it's interesting. At least in Texas, where I come from, the farmers, particularly the older farmers, they're not so technically savvy. They don't. even I'd say like my dad, you have to show him how to use Facebook. It's like very hard. So I don't know if that you had that problem when you're working with the farmers, trying to show them how to use the systems and everything.
Yeah.
That came to naturally.
One thing that I usually reflect on is all because sometimes we would take these group photos with the farmers, and they would be very excited to learn, because part of the program was actually having them have access to smartphones.
Yeah.
So smartphones were part of the program, whereby you could even have the smartphones given to the farmers.
Sure.
And them seeing this whole new world where they were not previously exposed to was really nice. And empathizing with how to teach them how to use this new technology was also something very a great learning as well. So yeah, it was quite difficult because, I mean, some places the internet is not that good, so you have to also accommodate for that. There is also that knowledge gap whereby they have to understand how to use the tech. But I would say there was they would really embrace tech. If once they saw how much it was helping them plan, then they would really
they'd be on board.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what's interesting is, even back in that time, the phones have grown quite a bit now from then to now. Even smartphone adoption is growing quite a bit. Usually when investors come, there's still this narrative of like, we have to do everything with SMS and USSD, but I feel like the trends have kind of come true, because I heard a lot of people say, the smartphone growth is going to grow faster than you would expect. It will be pervasive even in the rural areas.
Yeah.
I don't know how far it is that, there now. I remember I went out to the Maasai area one time, and it was just amazed me, the guy in the full Maasai gear, he just whips out a smartphone. It's just like, okay, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think what they say is that we jumped the car because we didn't, especially in Africa and more particularly in Kenya, we didn't have that era of computers at home. So
yeah.
I think most of us
jumped from computers,
jumped from not having any tech to having smartphones directly. Yeah. So there was not that progression of having computers and then going to smartphones.
Yeah.
So I think, I think people are very adaptive to this new to technology. So we shouldn't really assume that will be the case. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So you're working with the farmers, and then you.
Yeah. So I'm working with the farmers for a while, and then I unfortunately we got a freeze in funds, and so I went back home one day, and I was told I went to work in the morning, and then at the end of the day I was told there is no more work.
No more work. The funds are gone.
The funds are gone. So a very interesting time. So I remember, and at this point, I've not yet finished my studies actually. So I've transferred from main campus in Eldoret to Nairobi. I've worked with that training institute. Now I've worked with these farmers, and the funding has been frozen, so there's no more work. And I still need to be paying fees because I remember the discussion I had prepared myself very, very well to go and tell my dad that I want to pause my studies from Maine and come to Nairobi, and I will. And for me to put that across, I had to tell him that I will be paying for my school fees. Right?
Yeah.
So that was the catch.
That's how a lot of parents handle it. I think it's like, well, if you want to make the choice, then you're on your own.
Yeah. So, and actually it included another clause because I was government sponsored when I was in main campus. But then once I transitioned to Nairobi, I had to pay the whole school fees myself. So
yeah. And the government sponsored, did they basically tell you, we're going to pay for you, but you have to do the information library science thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why they'll pay for that one.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. So now you're coming from paying a school fees, campus fees of around 12,000 a semester to paying 70,000, and then that's on me. So when we are told there is no more work, so I go home and I'm like, what do I do now? So the good thing is that I had been trained from early on, and this is the discipline that I talked about because of having two teacher parents had been ingrained in me. So I had always had a saving of around 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
So when I was told there's no more work, I said I will not first of all tell my parents. I'll try to see how I can squeeze myself, and I was able to survive to finish off the course with those savings and everything.
Oh, nice.
And I also got a job at a consultancy firm again in Nairobi.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's very fortunate, because otherwise your whole plan could have been thrown off if you hadn't have been saving like that. It's a good life lesson, I guess, for people to think about, if possible, to be setting aside some emergency funds for when life comes. And I think that's one thing we hear in a lot of the stories is, everybody has some kind of setback that comes and hits them pretty hard.
Sure, I think there will always be setbacks. I think how you prepare to face them is a important thing, because we in the world we are in. I mean, COVID came around, nobody saw it coming. So if you have some preparedness is what will make you different from the rest.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people are being impacted by this right now, because the USAID has been in the news recently. I think they've had all of the programs have been cut suddenly. And so I think a lot of programs are being funded by that. Like you're mentioning, okay, we're on a farming program and it's supported by USAID. Grants, I don't know if you've heard anybody having any kind of experience with that or not, but it's these type of things happen, in the world.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be quite a lot. It's an unfortunate state we are finding ourselves in so many ways. I mean, of course, the biggest effect being the people who actually depend on the actual end product, which is the help, right? The people who are dependent on the drugs and stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely one. I used to run children's homes, and that's where the children get the HIV medication from USAID's sponsored programs. So the medicine's quite expensive, so I'm sure, I don't know how.
Hopefully our government will be able to fill that gap.
To find a way to fill the gap, but
it's quite a big gap. Also, a lot of people, I'm sure, will be impacted in terms of the employer, because apart from the USAID itself, the direct employees, there are so many other organizations that depend on that funding, I believe.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations, they get a grant funding or something, and then they hire an employee, and they're being paid by those funds, or different organizations kind of depend on those funds. So I mean, so these things happen, right? I mean, you wake up one day and the funding, no more funding, it's gone. And then a lot of people these setbacks happen, I guess, is the point. You've got to find out how to reorganize yourself and keep moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that was that period of time. And then in 2020, I got a position at a local bank, tier 1 bank in Kenya. Really excited to get what we usually call now a normal, what our parents would call an actual stable job.
Like a desk job.
Because all along they are like, you're working for a startup, we don't know that company you're working for, but then this time you're telling them you've got a job at a bank. So it's a big news. It's some big news. Well, now in retrospect, there are so many other things to consider. But also it was quite a good experience, I would say. I got to work on a digital arm of the bank, which means it was not traditional banking. So what we were doing is we were building digital banking for users. So ideally, we are trying to eliminate the need to go to a branch. So you get your card delivered to you. You get all the banking services, whether a loan, very quick access to loans, saving products, investment products, without necessarily having to step into a bank. So it was also a very nice experience.
That seems like quite an innovation. I mean, when you think of the bank, you think of like a very slow moving, not very innovative type of system. These old servers, back there. But you would say that this bank you're working for had kind of created an intentional arm of the bank to allow these new digital services. Is that how they structured it?
So they had this whole arm which whose idea was to eliminate the whole point of going into a bank hall or into a banking hall. And the good thing is that again the point here of having really good mentorship. So all through, I got this friend in high school called Alex. We would go into newspapers. In campus, I got these two friends, Sammy and Fossey. And then here in at NCB, I got to work with a very nice manager who was able to mentor me into throwing me into the deep end, which is quite good because you that opens you up. So I remember I got in as a software engineer, just so that was the title. But then I had not done any, in engineering, we have mobile engineering where we have iOS people who use iOS phones. And then we have people who use Android phones.
Yeah.
I had never done anything to do with iOS, but I had a MacBook. So when my manager saw I had a MacBook, he told me,
it's like, you're the iOS
"You're going to be the
guy."
iOS guy." So I remember at night, so in during the day, I would work on the small stuff that I would be able to work on. And then during the night, that would be me learning iOS.
Yeah.
So that was also a very interesting time, learning a new paradigm, a new language. And also now going into from iOS again, being thrown into the back end and all that. Yeah, so I spent some time there, and eventually I was promoted into an engineering manager at the bank. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is, they have this rule, I think they call it the 10,000 hour rule, where you have to spend like 10,000 hours working on something to become an expert at it. And, it's kind of like you're saying, you got thrown into the deep end of working on this application where I feel like maybe this is the case that's how you really learn, right? You have to just get in there, program, do it. A lot of guys, I think they want to watch videos or tutorials or take a course. But really you have to do the hands-on, and the harder the application is you're working on, usually you can build more skills. Did you find that the case when you were working there with the bank?
True. Yeah, I think that really, I feel if I had taken time to learn it without that being thrown into the deep end, it would have taken me a very long time to understand and learn iOS engineering. And the same with when I was in campus. If I didn't take time to build these small applications for libraries, for schools, I never would have changed the course of my career trajectory, because I would have waited for anything that the lecturer is giving me.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to do something, you need to get yourself into it. And that's the only way you can really learn the actual bit of it. Yeah.
Sure. And so I guess now with your career, you're an engineering manager with Safeboda. Maybe you want to tell our listeners what Safeboda is and what Safeboda is doing in the transportation space.
Sure. So, yeah, I got very lucky to interview with Scott here, actually. So while I was working in the bank, and I got an opportunity to join Safeboda. So Safeboda, what Safeboda does is it's a transportation company across, actually not just transportation. So it's a service company. So offering transportation services for yourself, for parcels. We also have fintech services within our app. So it's multiple verticals. We currently are in both Kenyan and Ugandan markets, offering car, bike, and send options to our customers. Yeah, so Safeboda has grown since, I'm working around since 2017, into a very international company that is doing really good in terms of offering safety, reliability, and cheap, affordable means of transport to our users. Yeah.
Sure. And I guess, when people are using these apps, like Safeboda, Uber, these type of transportation apps, I feel like most people they feel like they go in and order a ride and then the driver comes to you. It feels like a very easy experience, right? But maybe, what kind of challenges did you see when you first started working with Safeboda and how that process worked behind the scenes?
Yeah, I remember the first few months of joining Safeboda were very interesting. I remember discussing with one of my engineers. He was sharing. This is way later after a few years there, because this is my third year. So the first thing he said is, I was very interested in getting into sessions, into deployment calls, into sessions with them to just understand the framework, because you can imagine I've come from a banking industry whereby what all I'm dealing with is accounts, transactions, But then here I'm now thrown into this other end, where now I need to deal with location matching someone to something else. So it's a lot of change in perspective and in thinking. So it was very the technology in Safeboda is really impressive, if I was to say, because you can imagine ordering once you order a trip, what Safeboda in the background is doing is finding the best, closest, most efficient driver around you, and trying to make sure that we match you with the best driver that we can get. And then again, after that, we're going to ensure full smooth ride in terms of the driver getting to where you are, the driver starting a trip, the driver going all the way, being guided, ending a trip, and then processing the whole payment process. So it involved a little bit knowledge of where I was coming from, because I was dealing with payments as well in the banking sector. But also now here I've come to learn something new, which is now the transport service. Yeah.
One thing that always kind of struck me as being very challenging about Safeboda's engineering is that the Safeboda system has to be up and running all the time. People are always needing to transport. A lot of the companies I've worked for in the past, if there's a downtime, yes, it's critical, but it's probably not so crazy. Like if you mentioned working on the library application, well, if the library application goes down for 30 minutes, it's probably not a big issue.
Yeah.
They say, well, come back later or something. But when you have somebody who's stuck in town or somebody who needs to go to a business meeting and they have to get a car and the system goes down, it's very problematic. Also, the drivers are needing that income. They have to always be getting trips. And so I know that was one of the biggest challenges when I first started with Safeboda. The system we had was a little bit unstable due to changes that happened due to COVID and rotating staff, things like that. And so the system just would start crashing. And that was so crazy to be able to say we have to have the system up all the time, 100% of the time, because there's just no allowance for downtime. So maybe what types of things did you see that worked to stabilize the Safeboda system? Because right now it seems like the Safeboda system is relatively stable. It's up and running a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Is there anything you saw that contributed to that?
Yeah, an interesting fact is that I joined the company when we were at the phase whereby it was time to transition. So I joined when it was a very interesting phase, when we were trying to transition from an older system to a newer system. So that again, I've been privileged to be always being thrown into deep ends. So I came into a time whereby we needed to solve those issues of failing services. Now you can imagine again, this is a service that needs to be up and running almost the whole time. And it also has a lot of burst of traffic, right? For instance, between the morning rush hours, we have so many people trying to order. Then again, in the evening rush hour when people are going home, we also have so many people trying to order.
Yeah.
So you have to manage those bursts. And the problem is you can't go down at those bursts, right? You'd even rather go down at other periods of time. But either way, you need to maintain uptime for at least the whole day. So that was a very interesting challenge, and I think what was good about Safeboda is the culture that is there, which allows innovative thinking and allows people to contribute ideas. And so at this point, we were transitioning from a monolithic service to using microservices for a number of reasons, and I think this is a very heated topic out there.
Yeah,
because,
exactly.
This versus this, but this versus this. I never look at it from that perspective of comparing technologies. To me, all technologies can work, but you just have to find the best for the right. It's like you need to find the tool for the right work, right?
Yeah.
So in our case at Safeboda, we needed to make sure that we can decouple the very high availability services with some services that, yes, can need to be high availability, but we do not mind them being a little bit slower or maybe not being up to par with this high availability service. So the problem you face when you have one big system is that think of it like you're all cooking using one sufuria, right? So if we are cooking different meals with one pot, then the heat is turned on, it will be the same. So if I'm cooking the same meal, this one meal
One
will
will
go bad,
burn
right?
and one
One
will.
burn will the other one. So that is what we're trying to avoid by putting them into different microservices. And what microservices means is just splitting up one big thing into different independent services that can actually work more or less independently. So the main challenge with working with microservices is that most people get to the point of separating them, but that's not it, right? You need to first of all separate them and also think about how can they be decoupled, because you can separate the code and run this code and this code, but if they still need to communicate for something to happen, then again you're back to the same problem, because if one goes down, then the others won't work.
Yeah.
So at this point, we are migrating our monolithic service that was done in PHP. A very nice language, has worked for many companies, very many great companies. But at this point, we felt we would get more better results to migrating them to JavaScript based languages. Also because of the talent pool in Kenya. So we were able to split our monolithic service into quite a number of microservices. Right now, I think if I'm counting, we are upwards of 30, more than that actually. And this has helped us in a lot of ways. I remember we used to have deployments that would last hours. And you can imagine since Safeboda is a very agile and fast-paced environment, you have deployments after deployments. So in a week, you could have a number.
Yeah, you'd be deploying all the time. It doesn't make sense to have like hour-long deployments.
So, yeah. And since since it's a monolithic service, you can't take the risk of deploying in the day. So you're having to deploy at night. So you're having so many nights that you're not sleeping really, because you're having to deploy at night. So changing that to a microservice means you are able to have versatility. So you're able to deploy individual services independently and make sure that it's very safe. You know that even if this service was to go down, the whole system is up. Yeah.
The way I always kind of think about microservice, and like you said, it's a hot topic that people really debate a lot.
Yeah.
And very vocal people online about which one is the best way to do things. And I think your point about there's not like really a right way to do any of this. I mean, we're all learning as we go along. Even if you have somebody who's been in the industry for 20, 30 years, they really haven't probably experienced to a great extent like the Safeboda use case.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So it's like a unique thing. I think about the microservices kind of like the way that the human body works, right? So you could start out with life as like a small organism, like some kind of thing that lives in the water, a single cell organism. That's like your monolithic thing. If it gets exposed to some chemical or something in the water, it'll die, right?
Yeah.
It's very easy to kill it, but it's very simple.
Yeah.
It doesn't require much to life. Whereas the microservices is like the human body. You have arms, you have hands, you have a heart, you have lungs. Okay, if I chop off my arm, well, I could use my other arm to do something, right? So you have some resilience there, but then at the same time, if my arteries get clogged and the communication of the blood can't go throughout my body, I'm still going to die, right? So you move to this more complex thing that has redundancy and more complicated, but you still have these failure points that can really cause things to go very badly. And it's trust us, the Safeboda system works just the same way. But and I think your point around programming languages, things like that. I mean, there's a lot of vocal debate about these programming languages and different technologies. And I think the approach we always take is like we look to see what works. Certain situations work for Safeboda, certain situations work for a banking application, some things work for a video game company. We are trying to make the best decisions for what works for Safeboda. Yeah. And they may not always be the most popular one in the community. It may not always be the most popular one even internally with our engineers, right? Maybe a certain engineer really loves a certain programming language and we decided to use a different programming language. Well, okay, that's people. There's a lot of personal preference, I guess, in the tech community, but most of the popular things work really well. I've had conversations with big leaders in Nairobi that might say, if you're not using Java, the Java stack to do your application, you're doing the wrong thing. You can't do anything good if you're not using Java. Okay, well that's probably more of a preference. Java's good. It's a good language, but It's just like, what's better, French or Spanish?
Yeah,
Okay, well, they're just different,
that's different. They both communicate.
Whichever one you like, use that one. If you like, if you know Spanish, use Spanish. If you know French, use French. That's kind of the way we look at it. Although there are there's, and these are big technical discussions that the engineering managers have to make. So how do you go about that process? How do you keep on top of the technologies that are out there?
Yeah, I think especially the transition for me from being an individual contributor to engineering manager was a bit tricky, because here you need to change your perspective from being someone who works on something that particularly you've been given. And so towards your point on how you keep up to date, is that you never lose your programming edge. So that's the worst mistake that someone can do, especially when you're going into leading a team. Because I think if there's one thing that engineers don't like, is being led by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. So never losing your edge or your programming skills is really important. And now once you have that, then now you can be able to lead the team and not just lead by giving your preferences, but rather letting that being owned by the team. And all that means is having a culture whereby ideas are welcome, right? So I think right now at Safeboda, we are able to have the engineers, myself and yourself as the CTO, be able to welcome ideas from all angles, right? So if an engineer thinks this would be probably the best way to go around this, yes, you might have reservations, but if it makes sense, and if it doesn't cause an issue to the company, then that's a welcome idea. So having a culture whereby ideas are welcome and discussed openly, without feeling like you always need to follow a particular pattern, that creates a very good environment. It also creates an environment of trust and ownership, so that engineers own their service, on their code. One interesting things that just to mention about the previous topic about microservices is that they also come with very other disadvantages. Like for instance, if you have many microservices and you're a smaller team, it means whenever you need to change, you need to know what does what, right? So you need to manage, you need to be able to have the engineers be able to manage all the microservices. So sometimes it might constrain your team in terms of resources, but also it also depends on how we've come up with the microservice. So for instance, for our case, we decided to go with JavaScript based or I could say Node.js based microservices. This idea is because we wanted to standardize across, so that someone can move across microservices without a lot of context switching. So I don't have to learn a new language to get into a new microservice. And that really helped, because that allows our team to be agile enough to work on any part of the
more
code.
Flexible. So if you have like 10 different languages, which microservice allows,
exactly,
it's very hard for engineers to move between the services, because you can't be an expert at every language. So there's a lot of context switching.
Yeah, it also enables us to have a very standardized training way, so that even if you were to onboard a new engineer, it's very easy for them to catch up. Because again, microservices allows us to have just one. If we know this particular service is for this, we can onboard an engineer. They can start there, right? And we know that they won't affect any other system, even if something was to go unfortunately wrong. So that gives us that flexibility.
Yeah, and that's it is very flexible. And I think the interesting thing also to point out for our viewers is that I wouldn't necessarily recommend microservices for a small startup company that's just starting. It's too complicated. You need to have a lot of what we call DevOps, which means these guys that work on the servers that help you deploy things and get things into the cloud. We talk about cloud computing. Well, the cloud, people always ask, where's the cloud? Well, there are guys who make sure that your software gets into the cloud. It's quite a complicated thing. It's not like very easy. So it takes a lot of resources to make these things happen. And it's like you mentioned, if you have 30, 40 microservices, 100 microservices, you have to coordinate all those things. And it's very complicated. So if you're new starting a business, I would say, don't get caught into everything that you read in the best practices. People will tell you this pattern is good. This do this thing. A lot of those guys are coming from very big companies. Safeboda, if you look at our um, Google Play Store, we have 1 million people who've downloaded the app. It's a lot of traffic going through. It's a very different use case than running your brother's DJ website. You don't need like something so complicated when you're doing that. So, well, that's quite interesting. So, what is it like now? You went from being like an engineer to being you were an individual contributor to now you're managing people. What is that like for people? What do they know about that?
Well, the shift is quite. It usually seems small because it's the same engineering field, so you should be able to adapt. But it's a different work altogether, because when you become now engineering manager, you stop just interfacing with a code, right? Right now you're interfacing with once you're leading a team, you're interfacing with different teams. You're interfacing with the senior leadership, right? You're interfacing with the product team. You're interfacing with marketing. They call up and they say they want this and this and this. You're advising the business on the directions to move. So it's a very different. It requires different capabilities, and I think if you were to, and I think this is something that I see being an issue in quite a number of places, whereby the career trajectory only allows you to go into engineering leadership, and that kind of restricts a company, because if an engineer gets to a point whereby they're now senior, and then the next path they can go is engineering management, then they might not even be wanting that to go to that direction, and if that's a hurdle to them for their career trajectory, they will either leave or they will go into engineering management, but they don't like it, so they won't do a really nice job. So allowing multiple career options such that if someone wants to grow but still remain an independent contributor, they can do the same. And then if someone wants to grow and become a team leader or something like that, they can grow into that path. So for me, it came naturally. I think I had. From high school, I had taken on leadership roles. So I had a leadership role in high school, and it was actually an elective position, interestingly. So that kind of had already prepared me into team leadership. And also at my first job at the institute, I also got to lead the engineering team that was building apps. So I was already kind of prepared, and I knew what it takes, or not necessarily what it takes, because can never really be fully prepared, but at least I had an idea of what it requires to lead a team. So that is really important, because it's a very different mindset from being an individual contributor.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said, these two different paths that engineers can take, because certain guys are like the Albert Einsteins of coding. They're super intelligent, can code really fast, can do the best solutions, but really when it comes to people interaction, maybe it's not always the best thing for them. And so that group of people needs to be able to grow in their career and be able to have increasing opportunities. And it's not that everybody's not a people person, but maybe you're just the type of guy, I like to code and do my thing, and can continue to grow my coding skills. There's a lot of people that are like that. I mean, particularly, I know myself, even I'm quite introverted. I mean, I would, love to sit there and just code all day. It would be a really interesting thing. And then, some people are better with people and can kind of interact with them a little bit more. So it's good to have that trajectory as you grow in your career. I think it's important.
Sure. Yeah. And it's a very good point for companies that are out there, because allowing your engineers to be able to grow in all two different ways gives them the need to stay. Because now, if I can only grow by becoming a leader, I'm constrained. And also, if I can only grow by becoming an IC, also I might be wanting to grow into leadership. So availing those two options is really good for a company.
Well, I mean, so now what do you see for the future of Safeboda? Like, what kind of things excite you when what kind of projects are kind of exciting that you see coming up?
Sure. So at Safeboda, we have really, really a great team of engineers, and we have so much that we want to work on. We can't even start to describe. So first of all, with what is changing the whole world, we are going into an era whereby it's machine learning, AI, and all that. And all that is very important to us as well, because when you are trying to match you with a chip, or when you are trying to make sure your ride is efficient. We need all that data to help us be able to match you correctly and make sure that your trip is as efficient as possible. What that involves is a lot of data, and a lot of data needs how to analyze that data and come up with outputs from it. And that's part of what we are looking forward to at Safeboda, making sure that we can use machine learning and AI to improve the experience of our passengers and our drivers as well, to make sure that the experience is better on the app. We also have so many other items in mind. We have already built a very robust application as of now. It allows you to take a ride various ways, right? You can take a car ride, you can take a Boda ride. I think we were the first in the East African market to introduce Boda ride, right?
Yeah,
and it has taken its roots. Now we have car rides. In future, God knows, we might have other verticals,
tuk-tuks or
long distance. We also have a very interesting offering called Send, which allows you to send packages, whether you are an individual sending to another individual, or a business sending to a customer, or a business sending to a business. So all those are areas we are looking to improve on and keep growing so that we can make the service better for our customers.
And a question for you would be is, we don't know the exact numbers, but I would say Safeboda is funded, and the number of engineers that we have is probably over 1/100th of the size of our competitors when you talk about the Ubers, the Bolts, the different ride-hailing companies that are out there. How do you think Safeboda has been able to succeed in this market? Because I think we're seeing a lot of success and growth. So how does that happen? I mean, what about Safeboda, is able to do that?
Yeah, not to really beat our drum so much, but I think we have some of the best talented engineers around. Both from our product support team, to our quality assurance engineers, to our product team, to our DevOps engineers, and to our software engineers. We have a very talented pool of engineers. Now, one thing I see at Safeboda, and I'm trying to really cultivate more, is trust and ownership. Meaning, even however small of a team we are, right? Everyone owns the value and the mission of the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in every small thing that they are working on, they have that in mind, that they are working on to improve the service of the company. So you will find at Safeboda, some of our most awesome projects that we've done have actually come from engineers themselves, right? So some of our most verticals that are earning us money have come from in the engineering department, ideas and everything and stuff like that. So that ownership of the company's mission enables us to have a very lean team that outputs a lot, because they know the end. They know. They kind of know the mission and the vision of the company, and they also are trusted to own it. So by trust, I mean we have a very an environment that is, I'd say, I don't know the word to use, but whenever a problem happens, we don't place it on the person themselves, right?
Yeah.
We are able to do a postmortem on the problem and learn from it, and make sure that everyone can learn from that, so that it doesn't repeat. That gives engineers the ability to be able to try out things and know that they are safe.
Yeah, I remember some of even the best products that we've had at Safeboda were recommended, by engineers, or, you guys would come to me and say, hey, we're doing bike transport. Well, a car is the same thing as a motorbike going from point A to point B. Why are we not doing cars?
Yeah.
It'd be very easy to add cars. It's technically not that challenging.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and even the leadership at that time didn't really have that in mind. Well, we were a motorbike company. We do motorbike transport.
Yeah.
Well, why not do car transport? Why, the opportunity is there. And that's become one of our best, cash flow pools right now. And these things, okay, now we're going from point A to point B. Okay, why don't we do long distance trips? Why don't we do, more on the package delivery side, end to end, like last mile logistics. There's a lot of ways that Safeboda can pivot, and a lot of that is coming from the engineers. So having that ownership, I think, is really good.
Sure. Also within the team, we are, since they have that ownership, they're also able to make sure that their code is good, right?
Yes.
Because again, remember with the concept of microservices, we are also able to have engineers own their code. So, for instance, since we are a small team, we are able to divide ourselves amongst our services. Yes, everyone can work on any service. Yes, but we have the sole, I would say, lead of every service. Now that enables them to actually always be looking at making the service better and better and better and better. And in that you will see we have so many projects internally that have cut our costs, right? For instance, projects that have cut engineering costs in terms of hosting cost. We have projects that have cut cost of matching. So, for instance, as people would know that are listening, we use maps, and we need to know the locations of the drivers and the passengers. So the whole process of trusting our engineers and that ownership culture enables them to come up with internal solutions for those kind of problems.
Yeah.
So that enables us to cut a lot of cost, and such in that way we are able to maintain this big service called Safeboda with a very small lean team of engineers.
Yeah, and I think that's what people don't really realize is that for an app of this size, a lot of times the infrastructure costs, the cost you have to pay to third parties to run these things, like how do you run maps? How do you interact with payment providers? How do you, keep your servers up and running, right? These things are not cheap, and the companies that run these things, they know that, so they, make it very expensive for you to operate. And the good thing is with the team structure that we have in place, it, like you said, somebody can specialize and say, hey, I'm going to work on reducing our map cost, for instance, right? So, okay, now we're going to reduce that. And over time, it's really paid off over the years. So now I think Safeboda is on a trajectory with a great engineering team. Like you said, great engineers, great product support, quality assurance all across the team, building this culture of ownership and everybody pitching in, throwing in ideas, and really having that ability to speak up and say, hey, here's what we need to be doing, and here's how we need to be going forward. So
Sure.
Yeah, so I think the future is quite bright. Okay, was there anything else you want to cover while we're here? I think the whole AI thing is quite interesting. I've seen the DeepSeek has come out the last couple of weeks. We're I know we mentioned we want to start using it on the app, and not DeepSeek particularly, but start using some more AI with our product.
Yeah, I think this is not just a bubble like people would assume. If you look at the World Economic Forum report of jobs in the near future, AI is going really to change a lot of these landscapes. So it's something that we can't be left behind, but you have to get into it strategically. You have to know what needs AI or what doesn't need AI, so that you can apply it correctly. So for us, we are really trying to come up with ideas that we know can help. So for instance, as I earlier mentioned, we are trying to see how best we can use all these capabilities to increase the efficiency of matching, right? The efficiency of making sure that you get the quickest, most efficient driver around you, the efficiency of making sure that your billing is done correctly, efficiency of making sure that we can even maybe predict when you're going to require a ride, and maybe probably have someone closer to you. So there are so many opportunities that are there from the world of AI. So it's interesting, and also internally as engineers, I know there's also a lot of conversation around AI replacing engineers in the next 2 months. Every day I keep seeing someone saying 2025.
Yeah.
When you were in 2024, they were saying by end of 2024 we'll be replaced. Now that is, I wouldn't say it is out of for a probability, but I would say right now who will replace you is someone who is using AI, not AI itself, right? Yeah. So if you're an engineer and you're not using AI, I think you're really losing a lot. Yeah. Because this eliminates a lot of monotonous work. Mm-hmm. So you still need someone at the driver's seat to actually kind of be able to check the output of these models. Because remember they are using data that they've been trained on already, and that data could have mistakes, right?
Yeah, it's not perfect.
So you still need someone on the driver's seat to check on the output of these models. So right now the most important thing is that to make sure that you're not left behind, to make sure that you're up to date, you're using AI in your daily work routine. That could mean things like Copilot. That could mean things like Casa for engineers. I know they'll understand those tools. Fortunately, right now we have even open source models which you can actually run and host yourself from DeepSeek and the rest. So the cost will keep going down. So it will actually open up doors for many people to try AI out. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the productivity. I heard somebody say the other day that really the key thing is, AI isn't about removing jobs. It's about actually providing people jobs, because you're opening up. Like I said, there's this tool we have now. Somebody needs to know how to use it, manage it properly, understand the deficiencies that it has, and really keep pushing it forward. So it's a really, I think it's really critical that AI is. I feel like it's going to open new opportunities. It's going to allow new apps. It's going to allow people to develop apps here more quickly than they would have been able to do without AI, and open up some job opportunities there. And it's an exciting time. I'm looking forward to how we can start leveraging it. I think it's important to grasp these technologies quickly. I used to have a boss who told me that when the computer mouse, for an old guy when the mouse came out, he said, this will never work. Everybody needs the keyboard. They can't use this thing. Yeah. Right. And of course, look what happened now. Yeah. Same thing, even myself, when the iPhone came out, I was like, I need to have the phone with the keyboard. Like we had this little slide out keyboard. So that's the first one I bought. So, because I just like, I can't touch this thing.
There's no way you could visualize using the.
Yeah. So, I mean, but you see where we are now. Like the thought that I had a phone with like the slide out keyboard thing is like stupid, now, but it's just, you have to stay, you can't get behind in the technology. You have to embrace and adopt it.
Yeah. What I'm really interested in is actually how we can make sure that young people are actually able to adapt this technology, especially in campuses and stuff like that. I think that it will be a really nice thing if this was to be adopted, because I know maybe sometimes you're very slow to adapt new learning ways in campuses and stuff like that. I'm hopeful that in Kenya we'll be able to adapt this and teach college students, so that when they're coming out, they already have that knowledge in hand. Yeah. Also, AI introduces quite a number of challenges, because, for instance, in hiring, I mean, it will have, for engineering managers and hiring managers, it has its own challenges, because you also need now to vet more, because people are using it again. So, but all in all, I think it's a great tool. We just need to learn how to use it correctly.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. It's been great talking to you. I think we've had a great conversation. For all our listeners out there, hopefully you learned some insights of how we can go out there and get the gold here in Nairobi, how you can become successful in your career, how you can, come from the rural area, learn your way through campus, you go through all these setbacks. And now you can be working for one of the top startups here in Nairobi, building an application that's had millions of downloads. We're, right on the right track here. So hopefully you've had some great insights, and thank you, Eric, for joining us on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.